Hello there and welcome to You Talking at Euronet Plus. Our guest today is a German Green MEP, member of the European Parliament, Jan Philipp Albrecht. Welcome.
Hello.
I said member of the European Parliament still for a few months. Are you going for another round in the European Parliament?
Yes, I will run again in my party. We still have to decide about the list for the voting, but I guess I will come back after the elections.
I guess your expertise issue, data protection, is one of the questions that will still be a hot topic after the elections. And this is something we're going to talk about today, data protection. In the Parliament, you are a member of the committee that discusses data protection, and there's also been an investigation about the US spying scandal. And last week, on Friday, President Obama held a speech saying that there will be no more spying on heads of states, which they consider to be friends and allies. What do you say about the promise from the American president?
I think it's disappointing. I mean, only saying that we don't spy at Angela Merkel and other heads of states anymore. I mean, what is about parliament members or ministers, or what is about the whole citizens in the European Union? Are they still subject to massive surveillance? After the words of Barack Obama, I have to say, yes, they will be subject to blanket surveillance, to vast surveillance of their communication. And that, I think, is unproportionate. And Barack Obama should have been done even more than such a small reform, which is not really a reform.
So there's not any major change. There will be a lot of US spying still on European citizens.
It's a change in rhetorics, but not in facts. In fact, there will be the same programs like PRISM, like Tempora. They will go on. They will do blanket surveillance of all of our communication, and that means an end to rule of law and the fundamental right to privacy.
And in Strasbourg last week, you said that it's time for the Parliament to actually take a stand and stop this. Why the Parliament?
I think that the European Parliament is the last board of protection for the citizens and their rights. I think that the European Parliament is the only parliament in the world which very intensively analyzed these spying scandals. And now we should draw the consequences. If we really think that these spying activities and these surveillance measures are going across a red line, or what a democracy can carry, then we should also take the responsibility to draw it back and to say, in Europe, we have rule of law and proportionality principles, and we only cooperate with those states who also follow these principles.
And this is something that the Parliament needs to do because the member states aren't acting, you think?
I think that the European Parliament is the only actor in the European Union doing something. I mean, we are not only talking about the United States and the restriction of their spying activities, we are also talking about the United Kingdom, and we are also talking about other European member states doing spying activities with their intelligence services outside of the framework of what we have passed as data protection and privacy rules. So I think that the European Parliament has to stand up, and hopefully, together with the national parliamentarians, we will get a better controlled security apparatus, and we get back our fundamental rights.
But in the European Parliament, there have been calls for cancelling various programs when it comes to exchange of data between the EU and the US. And you also did your own investigation. You put forward a recommendation, and nothing really happened. What more are you asking for?
I mean, it's disappointing. As the European Parliament, we have called to end with these unproportionate activities since the first revelations of Edward Snowden. In July last year, we passed a resolution in our plenary. And end of last year, we passed another resolution asking for the termination of the TFTP SWIFT agreement with the United States. And now we will properly pass our inquiry report, where we will properly ask for the termination of the so-called Safe Harbor Declaration, with which US internet companies can easily transfer our personal data to the USA. And
as you say, these previous calls, like the with the SWIFT, for instance, there wasn't any cancellation. Will there be a cancellation, you think, then, of the safe harbor agreement?
I think that after all of what happened and after the Commission doing nothing about our demands and also the Council of Ministers doing nothing really, I think that the pressure is high and citizens really expect us to protect their rights effectively. So if the Commission also rejects our demands to suspend the safe harbor agreement, I guess that this will be a matter of fundamental principle for the European Parliament, and it will play an important role in the question if we will approve the next Commission.
And then there's also a lot of work in reforming the data protection rules. Many people were expecting this to be finished before the elections this spring. Will these all fall into place?
I think that the European Parliament already has taken a very important step by voting the European data protection reform in October last year. And we were waiting since to start negotiations with the Council of Ministers. But unfortunately and very disappointingly, the member states and their governments didn't come to a conclusion in their negotiations, which are ongoing since over 2 years now. So that we still have no position in the Council of Ministers, and we cannot negotiate unless there is a position. So if there's no position coming in March, for example, I guess we will not get into trilogues and negotiations before the European elections. And then the citizens of the European Union will take that into account when going to the elections.
Yes, I wanted to ask you that as well, because we do have all these people being, it's a big concern for a lot of people, and millions of Europeans might be under surveillance. How will this affect the elections, you think?
I think it will be a very important topic in the elections. We already see now that the last 6 months of the revelations by Edward Snowden have started a huge debate across all the European states, of course also globally, on the value of privacy and data protection, on the question of how to regulate the online environment with these huge internet companies, and the problem of intelligence services gathering all information about us. I think people will decide in which society they want to live in, and they will put priority on those politicians who want to protect their individual rights on privacy and data protection.
But will they go and vote, you think? Because now what we see is that there has been this US scandal and nothing really happened. Do they have confidence in the European politicians, and do they go and vote?
I think what the European citizens can see is that the European Parliament, on their behalf, took a very strong position with the data protection reform. Almost all the groups in the European Parliament decided very strongly on this position. So they should just look at the Council of Ministers and look what are our ministers doing meanwhile. And I think it's very disappointing that until now, the ministers, after 2 years of negotiations, weren't in the position to justify why there still is a position by the ministers on behalf of the citizens. And the citizens will take that into the decision which parties are in those governments.
And then this issue with data protection, it's not only about new regulation, but also older rules within the EU. For instance, the Data Retention Directive. Before Christmas, there was a press release from the European Court of Justice saying that these rules, which apply since 2006, that they might go against fundamental rights in Europe. What do you say about these rules? Would they also be is there a need for a change or a cancellation of these rules as well?
There's absolutely a need for a change. Even, or at least after the revelations by Edward Snowden, we can see clearly what blanket surveillance means to all of us in a digitalized society. All of our behavior, all of our lives will be analyzed if it's available to the authorities. So I think we have to pose the question, what's the benefit of such a blanket vast surveillance? And until now, data retention has not proven that it's completely necessary to bring more security and better enforcement. I think what would help is to invest in better police, authorities work on suspicions or on risks, and not blanketly gathering and retaining our personal data. It will be taken down by the court. I'm very sure about that. And then we have to think about the question, is data retention really the solution? I think it's not.
And that will have to be our final remarks of this interview. Thank you, Jan Philipp Albrecht, for being with us in the studio at Euronet Plus.